Coming to you live from the Tino Studios in Minooka, Illinois. I'm your host, Bucky Shanks, and this is Tino Tonight. Welcome, everybody, to the Week 4 edition of Tino Tonight. We got ranked teams going down in bunches. 10 of the top 25 teams suffer a defeat, and 4 in the top 10. None bigger than number 1 Syracuse losing to a previously unranked Georgia Tech team. Coach Brigham and the boys had the Yellow Jackets playing, and they were prepared. Clemson, Washington State, Michigan State also lose. But we're going to jump into the squeak of the week. Yet again, we find the Big 12 front and center. Last week, we had 2 teams from the state of Texas as the Longhorns took down Baylor. This week, not much has changed as Texas is well represented yet again. This time we got Texas Tech traveling to Austin to take on the Longhorns. And Texas Tech came in with the guns up, and when the dust settled, they came out on top by 9.75 points with a score of 1,033.70 to 1,023.95. 6th closest game in Tino history, 2 weeks in a row on Squeak of the Week for Texas. This time they find themselves on the wrong side. Next up for Texas, a trip to Stillwater and a date with the once-ranked Oklahoma State Cowboys. Next up for Texas Tech, a trip to Manhattan. They look to stay unbeaten in the Big 12 and take on a Kansas State team still looking for their first win. And speaking of Kansas State, we jump right into the beatdown of the week. We remain in the Big 12. Fresh off putting up 1,258 points on Iowa State in the conference opener, the Sooners had no plans on slowing down, followed that up by absolutely pasting a winless Kansas State Wildcat team. Oklahoma wins 1134.45 to 842.70. The 291.75 point win is the 8th biggest win in Tino history. Kansas State looks to finally put one in the win column this week. They stay home and welcome Texas Tech fresh off their appearance on Squeak of the Week. Texas Tech will look to make it 3 in a row. Oklahoma looks to be in midseason form and head back to Norman to take on TCU. They're fresh off a win versus number 19 ranked conference foe Iowa State. Oklahoma, however, they will look to go 3-0 in Big 12 play. Jumping into Stock Watch, as for last week, we've got 2 more teams with back-to-back ranked wins, and we're going to spotlight them here, right now. We'll start with Virginia Tech. They come in ranked 16th now, sitting 3-1 after beating number 17 Wake Forest, then kept it going by knocking off then second-ranked Clemson. We'll see later tonight where the committee has them slotted. But next up for the Hokies, a winless North Carolina program. The Hokies will look to improve to 4-1 next week. Jumping into Arkansas, they come into Week 4 ranked 5th. Only thing between them and 4-0 is a 1-point loss to Kansas back in Week 2. The rest of the SEC can thank the Jayhawks for that because all that did was piss the Razorbacks off. All they have done since then is knock off number 3 ranked Tennessee and number 4 ranked Alabama to start SEC play 2-0. With Syracuse and Clemson losing, pretty safe bet to move the Hogs deep into the top 5. Gamecocks are on deck. They look to get their first win in conference play. And that brings us to the brand new updated top 25 rankings. We take a look at 25 down to 21. Checking in at number 25 is Iowa. A tough team to get a read on. Week 2, they beat number 7 Washington State. Week 3, they lose to an unranked Michigan. Week 4, they beat number 7 Michigan State. Up next for the 25th ranked Hawkeyes, they have unranked Penn State. Number 24, Wisconsin, 2-2 in the year, put up a huge total on the number 22 ranked Wolverines. Tough task on deck as they have the former number 1 ranked Michigan State Spartans. Could be a short stay in the top 25 with a loss next week. Number 23, Oregon State, enters Week 5 2-2. The suddenly surging Beavers have won 2 straight and have the 12th most points scored on the young season. They have a chance to make a statement this week with a huge Pac-12 matchup versus Cal. Both teams are unbeaten in conference play. Number 22, West Virginia joins the top 25 for the first time this year. They've won 2 straight with a win versus number 23 Oklahoma State last week. Baylor's up next for the Mountaineers. Number 21, Florida. After losing to number 3 ranked Vanderbilt, the Gators dropped from 18 to 21. Up next, LSU, who is 2-0 in conference play. Number 20, NC State, 3-1. A bit fluky as they sit 32nd in points scored. 4 1-3 teams have scored more than the Wolfpack. 2 of the 3 wins have come against currently winless teams. They look to make it 3 straight, however, next week versus the Yellow Jackets. Georgia Tech, fresh off a huge upset win of number 1 ranked Syracuse. Number 19, Michigan State. 2 weeks ago, they were 2-0 and on top of the world at number 1. Made sure to let the rest of the country know about it. Fast forward 2 weeks and Karma has decided to get involved. Now sitting 2-2, trending down. They look to snap the 2-game skid this week versus the number 24 ranked Wisconsin Badgers. A loss here and the Spartans will be sitting 0-3 in Big Ten play. Number 18, Alabama, 2-2 in the year off a close loss to number 5 Arkansas last week. They look to bounce back this week but have a mountain in front of them by the name of 4-0 Vanderbilt. This marks the Crimson Tide's 4th straight game versus a ranked opponent. Number 17, Florida State, 2-2 off a win versus 0-4 North Carolina. The Seminoles look to improve to 3-2 on the year and 2-1 in ACC as they square off Wake Forest in Week 5. Number 16, Washington State, 2-2, ranked 6th last week after a huge win versus UCLA. They lose this week to the Oregon Ducks. They look to get back on track next week versus Arizona State. Number 15, Ohio State. The Buckeyes sit 3-1. They lost Week 1 to Washington State and haven't looked back since. 3 straight wins versus Georgia Tech, Wisconsin, and Maryland. Ohio State looks to remain perfect in the Big Ten as they face Rutgers this week and continue their march up the ranks. Number 14, Oregon. The Ducks pulled off a blockbuster of a trade with USC, and in their first game with the new additions, beat up 6th-ranked Washington State by 120 points. Oregon currently sits 3-1 and will face Arizona in Week 5. Number 13, Washington, 3-1, following the same script as Ohio State. The Huskies lost Week 1 to Texas Tech, then rattled off 3 straight, beating number 23 Wisconsin, Arizona State, and a depleted USC team. They look to remain perfect in the Pac-12 and make it 4 straight. Next up is a big test for the purple and gold as they take on the UCLA Bruins. These aren't Chip Kelly's Bruins, these are Brian Jones' Bruins. UCLA and Washington, one of the best games on the slate for Week 5. Number 12, Texas Tech, 3-1. After losing to number 3 ranked Tennessee in Week 2, the Red Raiders have won 2 straight and look to stay unbeaten in Big 12 play this week. Arguably the worst team in the country sits on deck, however, Kansas State. Number 11, Syracuse, 3-1. The Orange were number 1 in the country last week and got caught looking ahead in the schedule. They set their sights on this week as they have a date with Clemson in what was setting up to be a number 1 versus number 2 game. But Georgia Tech came to play and knocked off top-ranked Syracuse and sent them spiraling to number 11. Huge matchup in the ACC this week as Clemson is on deck for Syracuse. Number 10, California, 3-1 after losing Week 1 to Clemson. The Golden Bears have won 3 straight versus number 17, Virginia Tech, number 22, Oregon, and Arizona. 3 of the first 4 games versus ranked opponents. Another one on deck is number 23, Oregon State, is on the schedule for Week 5. One of the best games of the week. Number 9, Virginia Tech, 3-1. 2 straight wins versus ranked teams and an appearance on Stockwatch. This mover and shaker looks to stay unbeaten in conference play as they face the winless Tar Heels. Number 8, Kansas, 4-0. One of the 3 remaining unbeaten teams, the Jayhawks must have DJ Khaled as one of their boosters because all they do is win. Kansas looks to stay perfect in Big 12 play as they battle the Cyclones this week. Number 7, Tennessee, 3-1. Bounced back with a win versus South Carolina last week after losing to Arkansas. Tennessee looks to make it 2 straight in the SEC with the suddenly crumbling Georgia team that's dropped 2 straight on deck. Number 6, Clemson, 3-1 after winning 3 straight to start the year. The Tigers fell last week to the Hokies in the 7th highest scoring game in Tino history. After sitting at number 2, this loss drops them 4 spots. The game next week won't be any easier as the Syracuse Orange are on deck as they also fell last week. What was shaping up as number 1 versus number 2 is now number 6 versus number 11. Life comes at you fast in TinoNCAA as one of these two teams will drop 2 straight after being a top 2 team entering week 4. Number 5, UCLA 3-1. After losing to 12th ranked Washington State in week 3, the Bruins bounced back versus Colorado. They got some help as number 1, 2, 6, and 7 all lost. They look to make it 2 straight this week versus a red-hot number 13 ranked Washington Husky squad. Number 4, Oklahoma 3-1. We saw them earlier tonight on Beatdown of the Week. The Sooners look to make it 3 straight and stay unbeaten in Big 12 play. The Sooners bring their high-flying offense into Week 5, taking on the Horned Frogs. Number 3, Arkansas 3-1. The Razorbacks riding a 2-game winning streak over ranked SEC opponents number 3, Tennessee, and number 14, Alabama. Arkansas is off to a very nice start to the season. They get the Gamecocks in Week 5. Number 2, Nebraska 4-0. We have 3 unbeatens left, and the Cornhuskers are one of them. Week 3, they knocked off the number 1 team in the country, Michigan State. They followed that up by putting up just over 1,200 points on Penn State in what was the 10th biggest beatdown in league history. This runaway train takes on Purdue next week. The Boilers also have a win over Penn State and are on a 2-game winning streak of their own. This one could be a sneaky good game. Number 1, Vanderbilt 4-0. The Commodores received all 10 first-place votes by the committee. Fresh off a 200-plus point win versus Florida, the Commodores were 3rd and got all the help they needed when Syracuse and Clemson both lost. They are the top-scoring team in the land and look to make it 5 straight and stay unbeaten in the SEC as they have a date with the 18th-ranked Alabama Crimson Tide. And Week 4 is in the books, and we'll be back next week to conclude all the action that was Week 5 here in TinoNCAA. For all of us here at Tino Studios, I'm your host, Bucky Shanks, and we'll see you next week. Good night, everybody!